What up, everybody? Hope you guys are having a decent September 11th. Kind of a rough couple days for the country, I would say. And I think it's important to do a stream about my thoughts regarding the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Unlike others who I've seen in this discourse, there's been some kind of downplaying of the significance of this event, regardless of your overall reaction. I think this is a hugely significant moment for our country. And it doesn't have to do with like the nature of, well, it's one person who died for one attack. You know, a lot of attacks happen. But for those of you guys who like watch my stream, I'm assuming you have some understanding like my values. And my value set includes like foundational principles of this country, which are that we resolve our conflicts and differences not with like violence, but with words, with democratic processes, institutions, that kind of stuff. That's kind of my bread and butter. So it should come as no surprise to you that why someone is killed, though we don't know, in all honesty, the precise motive. But I think that the strong, likelihood here is regardless of the particular ideology of the shooter, it almost certainly had something to do with the political views of Charlie Kirk. I would put that at a high likelihood. That why someone is being killed, the manner in which they're killed, is hugely significant in this country. And the person being killed is hugely significant. So it's not about the number of lives lost here that I think relate to my understanding and thought process regarding its significance. So I just want to underscore before we start, I do think this is a very pivotal moment in our country's history. I think it's a moment of massive significance, and one where like every former living president has commented. That's George Bush. I think Bill Clinton made a statement. Biden made a statement. Obama made a statement. Kamala Harris made a statement. So this is a nationwide story for a person who was hugely influential in terms of the 2024 election and really in terms of conservative right-wing politics now for the better part of, what would you say, 7-8 years, if not more, better part of a decade, and a pretty young guy. So my plan is to kind of walk through my thoughts, my reactions, and then talk a little bit about, my value add here, which is my reaction to some of the reactions. So yeah, that's the game plan. So let me start by like walking you through the day. This was yesterday. I was planning to stream, but I stopped streaming once I stopped that plan. Like I was going to go live when I saw what was happening with Charlie Kirk because it was breaking news and I was pretty much just glued to what was happening. It did affect me, like personally watching it, because one, just the human, I'm just telling you, sort of going through what happened. When I saw that footage, it is some of the most grotesque and affecting footage that I've seen of like someone getting killed. And it like left an imprint on your mind, just a visceral reaction. And I had just seen, there was footage going around of Charlie Kirk with his daughter and family and stuff. I had actually seen that going around earlier, maybe some months earlier. I don't quite remember, but it was familiar footage to me when I saw it. And that strongly affected me. I'm just walking you through sort of my reaction to it. And so I had that in my mind. I knew that he was a father, and I was desperately hopeful that it wasn't true. I saw Mike Lee, who was the senator from Utah, make a statement about it, and I was really hoping it wasn't true. But then I saw the footage, and I mean, like, it was a horribly graphic wound, and it looks like it was like pretty hard, like an unsurvivable wound, essentially. So emotionally, like it was impactful on me for sure. I'm not gonna lie. Just from that human connection, just like the visceralness of it, the family stuff of it. And so we were glued to our television / internet like streams and coverage and all that stuff. And then news came out that he had passed away. So that's sort of like my initial reaction to that is I'm super anti-violence and it was horrible to watch. Hard to stomach, that kind of stuff. And yeah, but here's like my take on it, my thoughts on the killing itself. Obviously, I consider it to be a cowardly, evil act in and of itself in the context of our American system. It makes no sense to resolve our conflicts using violence this way, this kind of political violence. Not only do I consider the act itself to be reprehensible, in terms of its effects, it can only make things worse regarding the climate of the country, regarding, our interactions and understanding of either side of the political divide, for our understandings of ourselves. So this is not good, and it will not lead to good outcomes. And beyond the kind of the act itself, its effects, a lot of these people, even though you may disagree with them, the people who share Charlie Kirk's outlook, these are people that we have to live with in this country. We need to find a way to live together. And the answer can't be bloodshed, can't be violence. That can't be right. So just as I condemned the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, the assassinations of the Minnesota lawmaker and her husband earlier this year, and the attempted assassination of that Minnesota state senator, I obviously will condemn the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And I don't think it's a hard thing to do. It's a no-brainer. And I'm happy to see, I think most mainstream Democratic figures, left-wing aligned figures, are doing likewise. So that's right off the bat. Easy to say. And not a hard analysis here. And obviously people who are celebrating, I think I condemn it. That's horrible. I think people who celebrate the death of Charlie Kirk in this context, that's a wrong thing to do. And I think it's ghoulish and likewise cowardly. Even if it would have the desired effect here. I mean, you're ripping apart a man from his family, a father from their children. So yeah, bad shit. No problem condemning it in the fullest possible terms. I want to be clear though I obviously think that this is a horrible act, and I think that this is a cowardly act, one that should be condemned in the strongest possible terms. It's not right for America. It's not American values. It's not human values. I'm not going to sit around and let people lie. A, about the purported cause of this assassination before we know the facts. B, about who is being quote unquote irresponsible regarding their rhetoric. And C, but the nature of the tensions that we're living in and the experience that we're going through right now. More importantly than that is what I take to be the lies being told, the assaults on our freedoms that both predate and postdate this tragic event. And I think it's more important in the face of tragedies and assaults on what we are as Americans to stand up for those freedoms even more so. People will often rattle off and talk about the loss of freedoms attendant to the war on terror, but you forget where the war on terror, or some of you may, that came out of a maelstrom of justifiable outrage and anger. My father always used to tell me, make a speech when you're angry and you'll make the best speech you'll always regret. So I think that people need to calm down, and this government needs to calm down and tone down the rhetoric now. It is disgraceful that the leader of this country, at a time when we need to calm down tensions, went on a stage and whatever AI video that was, I don't even know. I'm not making any of those accusations, though there were some weird glitches in it. It looked odd. I'll tell you that much. I thought it was AI the second I looked at it. It just looked off. That the leader of this country is just rattling off and pondering on the motives without any evidence, without even an ID of the suspect. That is disgraceful. Disgusting. The largest microphone on the planet. And he uses it not to calm tensions down, but to ratchet tensions back up. And I say largely the same stuff, by the way, for the people who are celebrating the attack. I just have less responsibility when they're not in public office. They didn't take an oath to uphold the highest office of the land. They don't have that awesome weight responsibility for the online leftists who are now being attacked, doxxed, and canceled and being fired because they're celebrating. But look at the MAGA influencers on social media and on YouTube. They are not calming tensions at all. They're calling for war. This is a war. This is a battle. You're not going to like what happens next. And so I'm admonishing, not that it's going to matter. Not that anything I say will matter in that respect. But it is disgraceful, I think, at a moment like this to be playing into those urges. So yeah, That's my take on kind of the initial response there. I'm concerned by the course of the investigation and the manhunt that's happening right now. There's a lot of mixed messaging coming around. I just heard this press conference where the Utah governor is stating there's like Chinese and Russian bots trying to spread misinformation. And at a time when Chinese and Russian bots are spreading misinformation, we have like the FBI director saying one thing and then the person conducting the press conference saying another. Congratulations, suspect in his hand. Oh, wait, he's not in hand. Oh, yes, they're anti-trans, Antifa ideology, or sorry, pro-trans, Antifa ideology. Oh, wait, no, there's not. It is not good in terms of messaging. We don't have a positive idea on the suspect. You know what? Maybe it's hard. I'm not going to say that I know how these investigations are running or that it's running poorly, but the messaging coming out of it is concerning, to say the least. And I don't know for sure that the personnel issues in the FBI have anything to do with it. I have no idea about that. I don't want to speculate like without further proof of that, but it is concerning. Is the head of the operation talking to everybody? Is everyone communicating correctly? What are the priorities here? And is the push for transparency, maximal transparency at every second, is that actually doing more to make the public confused? You know, before you've come to a conclusion or some reasonable conclusion on what the evidence is showing, you're just jumping the gun and tweeting. That can't be the right way to do the public messaging here on an issue of mass importance when the country is at a state of like, we're empirically, epistemically, in terms of our vision of reality, more divided than ever. No one knows what to believe. At a time like this, you want to be sending mixed signals? That's a recipe for disaster. To say nothing of the current Oval Office occupant's speech and the assumptions that he's making and his followers are making. In terms of our political rhetoric regarding Charlie Kirk and Donald Trump, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I take nothing back in terms of what I've said about Trump or Charlie Kirk. We should not be lionizing Charlie Kirk. You don't need to lionize Charlie Kirk to condemn his murder and assassination. Charlie Kirk tried to overthrow a free and fair election, and so did Trump. I believe Trump is a fascist. I used to, and I still do. And I believe their movement, this MAGA movement by these MAGA elites, is trying to destroy this country. And nothing about this unjustified, cowardly assassination changes either the substance of what I believe or the way in which I'm going to express it. I have always condemned vigilante justice. I've always condemned political violence, and I will continue to. But I'm not going to mince words about what I actually believe, nor would it be even-handed for me to do so, considering the rhetoric that's coming out of MAGA these days. I want to be clear about something. Trump and his affiliates have called Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democrats Nazis, fascists, all the names in the book. Jack Posobiec has a book called Unhumans. So I condemn in the strongest possible terms this cowardly assassination. He should be brought to justice as soon as possible. But let's not kid ourselves here. MAGA is a threat to this country. It was and continues to be. And they're proving it, and Trump is proving it by his response. What are they talking about? The MAGA influencers rounding up people who have this ideology, doing baseless criminal charges of ideological enemies. And ultimately, once again, like they were doing for their pro-Israel stance, using the powers of the state for blatant viewpoint discrimination, as an initial example, deporting people because of their views on Charlie Kirk's assassination. Not while I draw breath. I'm not going to be cowed into not condemning that. That is a deplorable use of government authority, and there is no Charlie Kirk exception to the First Amendment. At this point, it's kind of boring to go over the double standard here, so I'm not even going to try. If you're a regular viewer of mine, I mean, need I say more? I think that this killing, like I said at the start, has special significance. But let's not kid ourselves again. Democratic politicians were killed this year as well. And we saw what Trump and MAGA's reaction to that was. So I'm not going to dwell that much on the double standard here. But it cannot change the truth. The truth is, Trump is trying to destroy our country. And they're using this tragic, cowardly act to further cement authoritarianism and to justify their overreaches. And they're telling you out loud to them this means war. Before we even have a full accounting of what the hell happened. Just like, by the way, it's not too dissimilar to, in my mind, the reaction to the 2020 election results before it was even be possible, right? To understand the scope of alleged voter fraud. Before we even have an idea of a suspect, they are jumping to conclusions. Now, you can jump to conclusions in terms of people's reactions. And if these individuals are popping off saying things like, this is okay to do or this is fine, I have no problem with you all condemning that. But I'm not going to be a party to a galvanization of Charlie Kirk. It isn't what I feel. And it isn't what you should feel either. You should feel heartbreak for the human loss. You should feel angry at the injustice. This is an injustice. And you should feel determined to apprehend the suspect and to condemn this cowardly and ultimately evil act. But never lose sight of what we're up against politically, because this action doesn't change that calculus 1%. And some of the reactions from your favorite MAGA conservative, I don't even need to, you guys, I'm sure, have seen it already. Blatant lies, absolutely whistleblowing in terms of, dog whistling with respect to violence and what's going to happen. Are you scared? Are you scared? You know what they're doing? And some true threats. So that's my response on the assassination. Similar things in terms of distortions regarding what happened at Congress with the moment of silence. I think it's preposterous the notion that we should have Charlie Kirk lie in state. I think, these kinds of official government endorsements of religion, I don't approve either, but, they have no compunctions about lying regarding what happened there, even when that chronology is available for everyone to see. But yeah, those are sort of my thoughts. I don't want anyone glorifying the death or advocating for violence or anything like that. Here's some example. Fuck that Democratic congressman. But it's, this is typical, right? Like, just as there are leftists absolutely celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, I haven't seen any mainstream political figure do so from the Democrats. To a man, their response, from what I've seen, has been completely calibrated, moral, ethical. Mamdani's statement was great. AOC's statement I thought was great. Joe Biden's statement was fantastic. Barack Obama's statement was great. I have, to a person, right-wing politicians want occupations, etc. How do you remove violent rhetoric from politics when violence is politics? Generally not sure how to talk to my family about this. I think it's just about, we understand that at some level of abstraction, the use of government force is, I guess, technically violence. The libertarians are correct about it. It's about what are the means to achieve that, I guess, state monopolization of violence by having enforcement by the government. And that the means of that ought to be legal and ought to be peaceful, because we don't live in North Korea where there needs, or some other state where perhaps in a state of absolute tyranny, where you could think of some revolutionary where you would maybe think highly of them. We live in America, and in this country, abandoning the system that we've set up, I think, should not be done lightly, and certainly not in response to political assassination of this kind. The problem, Pisco, is that Republicans won't do the same for us. Okay. If I can't reach your heart, because I encourage you, just watch that video. And I understand that you might be like, what about the Gazans? What about the people who are dying in school shootings? But just watch that video of that child going to hug her father. But if I can't reach your heart by showing you that video, if your heart is cold to that because everything else, can I at least reach your head? Do you think it makes any political sense for Democrats to refuse to condemn a cold open bushwhacking in the middle of a college campus? That's not smart. Even if you can't find it within your heart to have any pity for this human and their family, and maybe you can't. How stupid it must be or would be to be like, oh, you should be catty about the death here, or you should refuse to condemn it until there's some requisite showing of recompense for all of the deaths that were ignored or where lies were amplified by the right regarding those deaths. You're never going to get that. So even tactically, strategically, I just don't understand the sense in doing the double standard thing. Acknowledge the double standard for sure. Acknowledge the double standard. Acknowledge the ridiculous commentary, which I take to be absolutely ridiculous. Some of it, not all of it. But don't let that stop you from doing the right thing, while at the same time staying principled, I would say, and standing up for rights, freedom, and against tyranny, which they're gonna escalate for sure in terms of rhetoric, and they're already trying to do it with the government, literally proposing to deport people on the basis of their downplaying of Charlie Kirk's assassination, whatever that means. Going to be an interpretation of the beholder, I suppose. Yeah, we watched the video of him buying a present for his daughter, like this like beautiful, I don't know, like this pink toy that she wanted. If you can't watch, I mean, really, seriously, if you can watch that video and not feel something for that little girl, I mean, that, just in terms of, put aside the rational thought of it, put aside the anything of that. If you can watch that video and not like have your heart breaking too for that girl. And she was there. She was on the scene. That's what they say. So that was a brutal bushwhacking. That was a horrible assassination. There is nothing that compels you to be like weak on that. Just be like, this is horrible. This shit sucks. And not that it really matters, because, you know, I recently did these live events with Tim Pool, and then I did one with this guy, Actual Justice Warrior. You can disagree with them politically. I can guarantee you, some of these people, you know, behind the scenes, and you have these family members, right? Like, you have family members who think similarly to people like Charlie Kirk. That doesn't mean that they're lambs to a slaughter. And yes, Charlie Kirk he's an elevated person of importance. I'm not denying that he's not just like your uncle who shows up at Thanksgiving, okay? But I like, some of these people behind the scenes, they're good. They're decent people. I'm not saying Charlie Kirk is one of them, but like, because I certainly have never met him behind the scenes or anything like that. But don't just assume, you know, they could be confused. They could be propagandists. They could be this or that. But, yeah, man, I can't help but feel like definitely angry at what occurred. I don't think Democrats are jumping for joy, by the way, Max. And I think I've been clear about that I think the response from Democrats and from mainstream political figures on the left has been perfect, exceptional. Point to me with someone who's done something that's like glorifying the death of Charlie Kirk. You can find influencers who do this, for sure. I think that they more live in the leftist circles, and you can find influencers who make bad statements, for sure. But in terms of Democrats with political power, their statements, I think, have been good. And certainly I condemn anyone who's glorifying these deaths or this death. Yeah, the teachers, all these people, I think this is stupid, wrong. There are going to be people, which, by the way, you can find them in any political group, who are like, yeah, I don't feel sorry when like such and such person dies. Or I don't feel sorry. Like, yes, in any population of that amount, you're going to find everyday people as well. I'm not here to tell you that it's only 1% of people. It's probably larger than that. But the people of influence, the people that are leaders, they're not doing that. And to see that, I mean, like, really watch the difference in the speeches between Joe Biden after Donald Trump's attempted assassination and Trump's speech afterward in terms of unifying the country.